everybody. Happy holidays, happy Christmas or Kwanzaa or Hanukkah or any of the other ones that I may have missed. I apologize.
You said holidays first. It's fine.
I did say holidays. That was all inclusive. It's all good. Whatever. We're here to talk about a Christmas slasher.
Happy solstice.
I can't believe it took us almost 400 episodes to get around to this one. We've talked about the sequels.
And I picked one of them. You picked one of them.
Yeah, I picked.
You picked two of them.
Wait, hold on. Who picked what?
I picked four. Matt picked
5.
3 and 5.
3 was literally we just needed a Christmas movie.
I'm pretty sure that was Matt. Like that's default Matt pick though. Because
I think I just was like, hey,
I
this
just said let's do 4 again.
So 4 and 5 are done. We don't need to do anything else except
this is literally the last one.
Yeah, there's no reason to ever cover 2.
We are actually. If we ever did 2, it would just be us re-releasing this episode.
Yeah, like it's like
with a bumper.
Like why? All right, so I want to ask a question right out the gate, which is, how did each one of us watch Silent Night, Deadly Night?
You mean for
this episode or
for this recording?
I didn't. No, I'm just kidding. It was a Anchor Bay DVD.
Okay, Scott.
I have a rip that is the weirdest fucking rip. It's not the same rip I had a couple years ago, but it like, I think it's supposed to be an uncut version, and there are extra pieces that are that. You remember when we used to watch My Bloody Valentine and they had those shitty fucking pieces in the middle?
So we're going to talk.
That's
Scott.
how I watched it.
Okay,
that's the same thing that because it just totally shifts quality like immediately.
It's absolute garbage.
And they call it unrated, and it's like
I watched the Scream Factory unrated Blu-ray that they released recently. Well, I guess not that recently. It was a while ago, but it starts with a very long disclaimer explaining the process in which they took to attempt to restore the uncut footage. And it felt like a weird combination of self-congratulatory, also disguised as an excuse for why it's not very good.
As an apology as well. No, we all watched the same version. I just didn't watch it on Blu-ray, so I wonder if they even upscaled.
I don't know, but
a better term. But
here's what I'm going to ask you guys, because I'm curious. All of the stuff where the quality drops to grainy, so you know it's the new stuff. Mm-hmm. Everything that if I was a director, I would have put on the cutting room floor. Like there was nothing of value.
Necessary. That was there. Like
it's just like a
gore. Most of them didn't even have any like.
It was establishing shots. Yeah. It was just like a longer shot of a character walking into a room where it's like, we need to show them walk down the hallway.
A lot of exteriors. I feel like there was like a lot of exteriors.
Is there this one spot after Billy kills his shitty boss and the girl that he's assaulting?
Yes, Miss Reynolds.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's like this spot where he like looks around and it's an establishing shot. I am confident that the previous version that I've watched with the full good quality has that shot. It's just like maybe 2 seconds shorter.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So they took out the entire good shot and they just added the shitty one.
Yeah, it was
weird.
It's so strange. And look, I heard similar complaints about Krampus. When Krampus came out and they did the naughty cut, everyone was like, there was nothing. Like, it was just like longer dinner table conversation. Like, it had like nothing to do with adding more gore.
Worse to watch for me.
Yeah, so it's like, not every horror movie needs to be this like, ooh, we pulled up all the cut footage, because like sometimes shit's cut for a reason,
right? Like no, you have to trust that people are doing their job and not just like be like, we found this in the trash. It's in the trash. It's the trash. The trash. If it's in the bottom of the trash, it means it's bad.
Yeah, I can promise you that all of the times prior to this Blu-ray, when I watched Silent Night, Deadly Night, I never thought, wait a second, how did Mr. Sims get into the back room? I wish that there was a shot of him walking through the aisle to get there.
No. What do you mean we're at a new house?
Like, all right. Sorry. So we got all that out of the way. My memory of this movie is that I definitely rented it with a group of friends in like 8th grade because it was one of those infamous movies.
Oh, yeah.
I also bought the VHS tape at a churchyard sale, which is
Hallelujah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But
Lula.
Lula?
No.
My memories of this movie, because it's been a while since I've watched it, I don't particularly like this movie.
What? I watch this movie every year while I'm wrapping Christmas presents. It's fucking crazy that you don't.
I might start watching it more again, because what happened was that like I got the DVD that was like parts 3, 4, and 5.
Oh yeah.
And like my memory of those was like, these are fun. they're not taking themselves seriously, and part 1 takes itself way too seriously, and it's too dark and nihilistic and grindhousey
really
for me.
There's so much dread. Like, but that's what I love about it, is that it feels like you're watching this deconstruction of self in slow motion, and that's what makes it like it's sad. Like, it's a sad fucking movie, you know?
Yeah,
like Billy is broke.
Billy's clearly not been at a place that's helped him necessarily.
Yeah.
Like, they've gotten him they've helped him grow up physically and then gotten
he's
him
a big
job.
boy,
but but they certainly not helped him psychologically in any way. And they've not prepared him for the real world. Yeah,
if anything, they've damaged him slightly more throughout the course of the movie.
Really?
But I have to say, there are things that are I can't deny that there's cheese elements in this movie that got me. And one of the very first ones that I completely forgot about is just that opening title card of the slow zoom to the reef with Silent Night with a kid singing, and then it's like cartoon blood explodes onto the camera and drips down to the word Deadly Night.
That the first thing that you were going to like really latch onto was Warm Side of the Door. I know it's like 15 minutes in, but goddamn, that song is ultra cheese. But it's got a killer fucking baseline, guys.
I did write, why are all the non-Christmas songs in this movie straight yacht rock?
It's so good. It's so good.
It's so weird. You have traditional Christmas songs and like choir singing it, and then it's just like Saturday Night at the Movies. Like, they're like setting up for whatever. You're just like, what is happening?
But are we ever gonna do a horror movie night album of any capacity of us of Matt particularly talking about what a movie sounds like, making the song up, and then singing it?
Listen, Patreon, guys, if you want this, pay for it. We'll do it. I have nothing but time. I mean, I actually have responsibilities, but that's fun. That's a fun thing.
It's fun. It's fun.
That's going to be a greatest hits, including things such as Matt's, Saturday Night at the Movies, his impression of what Power Rangers sounds like.
Dude, that is the best recording I've ever done.
So I got to say, Tom, friend of the show, Tom Pandich, are we allowed to use last names when they're friends of the show?
Sure, yeah, friends of the show.
He'll like that. But Tom was messaging me.
Tommy P.
Tommy P. He was messaging me and was like, I'm finally watching the Out There mega tape, and I heard a very familiar song at the very beginning. I'm like, bro, the fact that Chris put my songs at the very literally the first segments on the WNUF2 movie it's crazy. He was like, and I was like, he came to me and said, can you make a Power Rangers ripoff? And I was like, can I? And Tom said, I'm actually pretty disappointed in him. It makes me question his decision-making skills as a filmmaker, because he didn't immediately ask Matt to do it when Matt's cover is obviously superior. And I said, I offered to pay Chris to be in his movie. And Kyle, I heard speaking of sounds, I heard a very interesting sound. What did I hear there about 10 minutes ago at this point?
Sipping on Santa Claus from Fat Orange Cat. It's an imperial stout with cinnamon buns.
Baby girl, I got Alpha Claus from Three Floyds because
Three Floyds is great too.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a pretty good beer. I don't really love Christmas ales, but I actually don't drink a whole lot of beer anymore, unless I have a good reason for it. So
and it is Christmas.
It's Christmas.
It's Christmas here at Horror Movie
Stay
Night.
with me, kid. By this party, you'll think you are Santa Claus. I fucking love Mr. Sims. He's amazing.
Dude, Mr. Sims has a line that I guess was cut from the original movie because it's in some grainy ass footage.
Yeah.
Where it's just before, he fully snaps and Billy starts killing everybody. But Sims just walks up and goes, "Party's fucking dead anyway. Go get him, Santa."
yeah. Go on. Go get him. And he's like, you know what Santa Claus does? Go get him. Because he's just fucking slurring.
Well, and it really doesn't make any sense, and it makes it so purely drunk, it's such a good drunk character.
It's so good too because he's so fucking blind drunk that he forgets that Billy's parents were murdered by Santa Claus on Christmas Eve.
Here's my question actually on all of that.
No love.
I think that he was never fucking told by anybody at that orphanage.
He was because I thought that too until this watch, because he goes, what's wrong, Santa? And Billy's fucking drunk already, and he's like, because he's never touched alcohol in his life, by the way, and he's just giving him straight whiskey. And Billy's drunk in the Santa costume, and Mr. Sims comes up and goes, "What's wrong, boy? What's wrong, Santa?" And he goes, "I'm thinking about my parents." He's like, "Great, you should think about your parents on Christmas." And he's like, "They're dead." And he's like, "Oh, that's right, I forgot." You know, these, you know, like, so he was. It was explained to him by that younger nerd.
It may not have been fully explained. It might have just said, "Hey, he's an orphan. His parents are dead." They may not have gotten into the nitty-gritty details of his Santa trauma.
I don't know, but I do love that he goes over and he like locks the door of the toy store and he goes, 7 o'clock, it's over, time to get shit-faced. So I really want to cover Santa's Watching, the song from the credits when the credits roll. And I want to have that sound clip at the beginning of it because it is so many people on Christmas Eve. But I also am like, I'm at the point where if I have 2 drinks, I will feel like crap the next morning. I cannot dedicate.
No,
any
I shouldn't
time.
have opened the second beer for.
The thing that makes me so amped when I watch it is the montage with Warm Side of the Door. Billy starts his job at the toy store in the spring, so he's got like 6 months, 8 months.
Well, let's acknowledge that we have in this episode. We are 15 minutes into recording this, and we have jumped almost 40 minutes into this movie and just ignored.
People like this have seen this movie more than once.
I do feel like as long as I've been on the show, this is like the most, maybe not, but this feels like it's up there with like the most watched horror movie that we've talked about since my
for sure
arrival.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like I think you have to have a little. You have to have some obscure. You have to have some stuff that's
and but it was surprised that y'all hadn't talked about this. So I'm happy to.
You got to save something for episodes 500, 600, 700, 800, and so on.
No kidding. That's right.
I will have no hair by then. But and I will look like Mr. fucking
You and
Sims.
me both. Do you see this?
No, bro, shut the fuck up. But anyway, that Warm Side of the Door montage, it just kills me every time because the 80s toys are just pure serotonin. You have in the background, you have like all the Return of the Jedi shit because that came out in 83 and this movie came out in 84. And so they literally just rented out a toy store to shoot in. And like, it's just, and there's like a G.I. Joe Halloween costume. It's just, I mean, I would, if you gave me a working time machine, $50 says that I waste like the butterfly effect and going to go kill Hitler or whatever you should do. And I would just go to the toy store in Silent Night, Deadly Night before Billy kills everybody and just like grab as much of that Return of the Jedi, those boxes, because I want Jabba's palace. I want Jabba on his throne. I want the Cantina band. I want the Ewok, like, the
Dude,
forest houses.
Yak face, man. Yeah.
Yes, I want it all.
The rarest of all the Star Wars toys.
Of a cease and desist. Like, it's so close to not being able to being released with that footage because of what's in the toy store. It's so fucking close.
Well, especially, like, given how controversial this movie was upon its release, you think that
like,
every toy company would be like, please do not hold on. On any of that.
And the thing is that I knew about this movie. So this movie came out when I was 2. And I knew about this movie by the time I was probably 5.
Was it sort of like legendary in like your...
Absolutely.
Like, how did you know it?
Oh, because we go to the grocery store and I would scare myself sick by looking at the box art. I remember... I think that the 2 biggest ones were Monkey Shines and Silent Night, Deadly Night. And Monkey Shines does not live up to the expectation as an adult, but man, does Silent Night, Deadly Night come and just smash you in the fucking face with it. I don't think I saw this one first. I think I saw Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 first, and I was in college. I never watched this movie in high school, and I have made up for it by watching it at least once a year, every Christmas in my adulthood. It is just this and my double features are just it's rotation every year when I wrap presents.
Well, there you go. So something that I forgot about in this movie is, I think Kyle will relate to this. I'm a big fan of watching a lot of the slasher documentaries that dropped in the mid 2000s. Your Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue, and Going to Pieces, The Rise and Fall. I completely forgot that there's a shot in this movie that appears in all of those slasher docs, and I never pieced together that it was from this, which is the box cutter through the stomach in the break room when he's killing Pamela. That shot appears in a lot of like kill montage sequences, But I think because of the way it's shot, you don't even see that it's a Santa Claus that's doing it really because it's so quick.
I think you see a red hand because it's, I mean, as long as you don't see the white around the wrist, it could be anybody.
That's what I mean. I was like,
it's kind of Giallo-esque, but
very much so.
But it's also like, but it's in an American Christmas capitalistic. Like, it's like, I'm not gonna throw a fucking study on it, but it's just like, it's so removed. but it's so kind of like uncanny in a way, because it does feel unlike a lot of things that you see in slasher movies, but it also seems so like, oh, that's Silent Night, Deadly Night. Like, it can go either way.
It's really, this movie's kind of interesting to look at through the lens of all of the other Christmas horror as well. And I'm not going to list a bunch of them because obviously there's a good chance that it's a bunch of people's double features. But
Who
like,
cares? You know what? It's Christmas. We can have presents all we want.
But
God
even
bless.
something like
God bless. Jesus Christ bless.
Yes.
Oh,
happy
subscriber
birthday.
numbers going down as we speak.
But no, the like Silent Night, Deadly Night, I think is a more fun watch. But
this movie is not fun though.
But it's not. It's not. But
can I say that?
But I'm comparing it to Christmas Evil. Like Christmas Evil,
Christmas
I think
Evil
is
so unfun. Yeah,
but
you're
it's.
right.
But I think it's a better movie for what it's trying to do, which is like be a character study of someone who does snap under these circumstances. This one just feels so like Christmas Evil feels like if Brian De Palma or Stanley Kubrick wanted to make a movie about a killer Santa Claus, this feels like a grindhouse-ass look at like the exact same concept, but really leaning harder and harder into the exploitation of it all.
Yeah, this movie is probably the most exploitative movie that I will pick probably ever on this show. But I think it's just this movie, and pardon me for saying it twice, but I think this movie is special. I think that it's like, it really toes that line of being exploitative, but also being really like cogent in a weird way, because it
takes us back to when people tried to cancel a movie for valid reasons.
Yes. Now this movie is fucked up. Like I would not show this to a 6-year-old.
There's a level of concern here.
Yeah.
Well,
and it has nothing to do with the sexual assault and the
right. We even talked about it before we got on air, like considering if this is not if this is an appropriate movie, but like,
so to people's to Matt's credit, after last week, I said, can we do Silent Night, Deadly Night? And he was like, I'm pretty sure that there's the R in the very beginning. And I'm like, let me check. I'm pretty sure it's not, because I watch it every year. And I was like, no, there's no R in the beginning of this. It's the Santa killer
rips open the shirt, but then immediately
slices her throat. But there is more essay later on, before Pamela gets murdered by the guy that is assaulting her,
which I've totally forgot too.
I think that it's very interesting that it's there, because the first time you watch this, and then if you watch this movie and forget about it, and then the second time you watch it, if you're not really well versed in what happens and who gets murdered in this movie, which is literally everybody, you watch it and you're like, oh, he's gonna let her live.
Yeah,
he's the good guy. He's an anti-hero.
Right.
Fuck no, he's not. He is unhinged, and he kills her too, because he thinks that because she was being assaulted and her breasts are out, and he also is dealing with his own feelings of like sexual desire for her, that he just has to kill her too.
Right.
And I love that. That's what I'm saying about this movie being special, because I think that there's a lot more thought put into the character than anybody gives it credit for, because they're like, oh, it's that slasher movie.
It's almost like a small twist.
Yeah.
Like in a way, you know.
Then he's just like, I'll fucking kill everybody. I don't care.
Yeah,
right.
The only person he doesn't kill is the kid. He doesn't. He won't kill kids because he thinks that they're innocent, and that's like his inner child trying to fight. I mean, like, this is therapy sessions right here, but you know what I'm saying.
No, but it works. It applies completely.
But then it works. But then it also kind of like he does suddenly lean back into like he is punishing people. I remember someone talking about the movie Super before. And they were saying, like, the brilliant thing about Super is that for the first half of that movie, he is legitimately punishing anybody who he sees as bad, and it's robbers, and it's you know, it's really big stuff. But the more that you decide who is good and who is bad, then it's like he's beating someone with a wrench for butting in front of him at the movie theater. And it's like that line, when you decide that you are the decider of the law, that line becomes more and more hazy and gray by your own interpretations of things.
That's kind of why things like Maniac Cop, that's kind of why things like a Maniac Cop work. And I mean, this movie falls into that because
does Maniac Cop work?
It doesn't, because cops are all we should never tell stories about cops.
We are just hitting the greatest hits of stuff people do and do not want to hear.
I'm sorry, but I think that there's something that works story wise where if you do it once, you don't have to see it again. And I think Silent Night, Deadly Night does that. It kind of owns up. I mean, we're putting a lens on it.
Sure.
Here and talking, but
I mean,
also at the same time, it works.
38-year-old movie,
right? But it also works exploitatively. Like it works in both tracks, and I think once a movie works in both of those tracks, nobody else after that can really do it. And Maniac Cop may not be the example, but I think that it also it kind of is. It's like you also have somebody abide by the law until they don't. You have somebody abiding by Santa laws until they don't. And it's because
I think that he's abiding by Santa laws the entire time because it's his fucked up idea of Santa, which is you have to punish people, and the things that you punish people for are
it's almost so literal. It's almost so literal to the
type
explanation
A.
of
It's
Santa.
literally there's no gray area. Type A Santa, and it's like children are good, then adults are bad because literally anything that an adult does is bad. Like Mr. Sims is coming after him. He probably is like, oh, I see him as a threat. Murder. Right. Mrs. Randall gets killed because she's wrong place, wrong time. She's got to go. She's scared by him, and so got to go. And I love that he has that toboggan beheading because those fuckers stole the toboggan. They're naughty. They got to get punished. And also, toboggan beheading is my Xmas themed death metal project. So just put it out there.
That is the best moment in this movie. 100% for me is the sled.
I hate the graininess that changes.
Yeah.
It changed that. Yeah, I'm just like, come on.
I was gonna go with toboggan decapitation, but we already have cattle decapitation. I thought that would be too on the nose.
Can we talk about though that this kid, who I don't know how old the character is supposed to be, but the actor is damn near 20 years old. Is having way too much fun trying to force this sled to move through the snow.
He's never sled once in his life. Not once.
He's screaming, but also trying desperately to get this sled to work down the hill.
Have you ever tobogganed, Matt? That's exactly what it is. Those things suck.
That's all tobogganing is.
There is a couple funny lines of dialogue in this movie. There's one in the very beginning when Billy is first being punished for spying on two people having sex, and it cuts out to the playground, and a kid just walks up to Rick and he's like, "Your brother's crazy, Ricky." That got a laugh out of me. But then Linnea Quigley pops up in probably the most famous scene in the movie, which is getting shoved into the antlers. But the little girl is calling for her, and she says, "If you don't go to bed, Santa won't come." And the guy next to her goes, "He's not going to be the only one."
It's every time. I almost forget it every time.
No, I will never forget it. And also rest in peace for the panties that they put poor Linnea in, because they are just the saggiest, most awful things. Thank goodness that she got put in some Daisy Dukes, which is a weird thing to say.
Yeah, no, but truly.
Also, shout out to Penny Dollarhide on Instagram, who did an amazing cosplay of Linnea Quigley with deer antlers through her fucking ribcage.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh yeah, it's incredible.
I'll tell you something that I could do without in this movie, and this is Matt, the empathic human being, is I'm totally fine with the Linnea kill. I'm totally fine with the little girl seeing Billy and Billy giving her a box cutter. What I'm not okay with is Billy leaving the house and me having to hear this little girl start searching for her babysitter, Denise, because I know that this means that this child is going to see the massacre and be scarred for life.
Okay, so that's what I made a joke about how I don't love the third act of this movie.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about that little girl finding Linnea and her boyfriend's bodies, and then the kids at the orphanage seeing Santa get killed not once, but twice. Yeah. It's this idea that I really love about generational trauma, where Billy was traumatized and it's out of his control not to traumatize other children. And I think that's, I mean, I know that there are probably people that are listening and they're like, Scott, shut the fuck up. Get off your soapbox about Silent Night, Deadly Night. It's just a cheap ass, slasher flick from 84. But that's why this movie has gone into so much heavy rotation for me, because it seems like it does so much of what it does so much beyond just giving you a kill comp. And I love that, because any one of the kids that experienced this 15 years later, they could do the same shit.
Yeah. No, I'm
gonna be us.
I'm gonna I'm gonna back you up completely on it, because it's also like, not for anything, but it's like, just because it's a cheap horror movie from the 80s does not mean that there is no thought put behind it. There's probably more thought put behind it than anybody realizes. Just the capability and the ability to do such was more available, like, in some ways, like, you know what I mean? So it's like that people might not talk about the deeper themes of Silent Night, Deadly Night, but also, like, not only is that like the generational trauma is paralleling, but it's also like the trauma of the story of Christmas, which I think that, like, on a campier level exists.
That's
it's like,
campy.
There's like the
super
naughty,
fucking campy,
right? Like, there's the naughty, the nice. There's like the very, like, black and white situation. But at the same time, you're telling about that black and white situation by looking at it through a lens of, like, well, this is what happens to fucking kids. This is what happens to kids that aren't, like, brought up with any sort of healing or any sort of care or any sort of, like, and you're just sort of put back out into the world. And it's like, yeah, maybe it might not have been thought about as deeply as we're talking about it, but it doesn't mean that the thought wasn't there. Or that the understanding
maybe it was
of it wasn't
subtext
there.
in the writer's mind.
Right. And it is. I think it is. When you say a special movie, I'm going to echo that, and I know Matt does too. It is. Yeah. As oh, I meant to say this about John Carpenter's Vampires. That movie is unwell. And I'm going to say that about Silent Night, Deadly Night. It's an unwell movie, but at least it's informed. Sure. It's informed about its unwellness.
Yes. No, I think that's
John Carpenter's Vampires is not.
Do you like to laugh, geek out on music, and learn all about that band or artist who had that one song back in the day, but then seemed to fall off the face of the earth? If so, you need to subscribe to One Hit Thunder. Together with an array of interesting and hilarious guests, we do a weekly dive into one-hit wonders like Eiffel 65's Blue, Krayshawn's Gucci Gucci, EMF's Unbelievable, Delamitri's Roll to Me, Los Del Rio's Macarena, Musical Youth's Pass the Dutchie, and even Patrick Swayze's She's Like the Wind. So are you subscribed to One Hit Thunder or what? As Desiree would say, you gotta be. And as K7 would encourage, you gotta come, baby, come and join in on the fun of the One Hit Thunder podcast.
Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come, come. Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come.
Scott, now you watch this movie every year, and I'm sure that you watch maybe a double or even triple feature. So since this was kind of the one you spearheaded,
can I do my triple feature?
Yeah, let's let you do this.
Presents? I'm so sorry, guys. You can have the same movies. It's
okay. No, I would love to hear actually what you do.
Yeah, what is your triple feature?
So this is how I wrap presents, because I wait until about 10 days before Christmas. So December 15th. Here we are. I've got a closet full of shit that I'm hiding from Megan and everybody else that comes to the house. And I'm like, favorite part of Christmas, because I don't love a whole lot about Christmas. I'm a Halloween guy, you know that, but I do have my rituals. And my ritual is I bring up my VCR and my cathode ray TV from the basement. I go all old school and I watch.
You only do this for Christmas?
I only watch VHS tapes once a year, and I watch Silent Night, Deadly Night. I'm sorry. I start with Black Christmas, 74. I then watch Silent Night, Deadly Night, and now I can watch Elves on VHS because I have a copy of Elves now too.
That is a mean-spirited triple feature.
I'm not actually actively watching them.
No, you're wrapping gifts. It's
and I'm just like,
it's background music. It's music.
I'm just bouncing around.
We just did 1974 Black Christmas as our Halloween episode for Christmas 365.
Damn, that's brutal for Christmas 365.
No, but you know what? My argument with that is it is arguably the most Christmassy of any Christmas horror movie, because that whole movie is just Christmas carols playing in the background from start to finish.
Yeah, like, it's up there. I don't know if I totally agree, but but you're right. Like, I think especially for Christmas 365, like that's the Halloween one.
Well, we already did Black Christmas 2006
Black Xmas
last year.
Black Xmas, which is lovely.
That movie's fucking rules.
I
wish we hadn't already done that movie on the show because I would do it again in a heartbeat.
All right, so there is zero chance you have taken my double feature, so I will let you take.
No, but I would also like to. But Scott led us on a. I mean, I think that it doubled as both of his things. But Matt, do you have certain horror things that you watch every Christmas during wrapping? Or
I actually actively avoid. Yep. I try to get all of the Christmas horror out of the way in November, because I am such a Christmas traditionalist that it's like, oh, it's December 1st. It's time for like black and white movies about the magic of Christmas time. Like, I am just on board.
When we're talking about like generational trauma and how Christmas fucks up a lot of kids, I can't speak for you, Kyle, but I can speak for Matt. That Matt has had the most charmed fucking Christmas life of all time, and I fucking hate it.
Your parents are still together. You have siblings. Everything's
You never had a traumatic Christmas
there.
in your life, and I'm so pissed off.
No, I've had sad
Therapy
Christmases,
is hard in
but
November
I
and
fight
December
for
me. Okay,
listen, there have been many a Christmases with loss that actually make it. We just released an episode of Christmas 365 about the Garfield Christmas special, and that special makes me cry every single time, because there's this beautiful scene where the grandmother just gives this minute-long speech about how Christmas is the saddest day of the year for her because she misses her husband. Like, and it's like, I feel that too, but I feel like that's part of the Christmas experience is like, yeah, it sucks that there's like this sadness and this pain in you, but there's also, I don't know, I feel like there's something beautiful in grief and sadness, because to have that grief and sadness, there has to have been something of great joy in your life prior to that. And it's like a reminder that you were lucky enough to have that joy in your life at one point, and that it's possible to have that joy in your life again. And that's why the controversial guy who teaches a youth group statement that I make every year is that I think that there is more value out of Scrooge than anything in the Bible or out of Santa Claus, to explain why I love Christmas. Because to me, Christmas is about the possibility that you can be a better person. At any moment, you can stop being a shitty person and be a good person. And that's what I try to remember is like,
I just became the shitty person because I was like, I was going a whole different route. Sorry, Matt.
But that's my take on it is honestly like, any person has the capability of changing, whether it's being a sad person to a happy person or a shitty person to a good person. Don't take that for granted. And here, you know what? Seasonal depression is a very real thing. This is our Christmas episode. I think all three of us, great time to say, if you're feeling real fucking low because it's Christmas coming up, all three of us are always happy to talk with you about any of that shit.
No doubt. Because I think that we've all, not only have we been through it, but we could potentially be in it / be through it again. Yeah. Right. So don't ever think that you're alone in that. And also being in the Northeast of the United States is literally logistically, we're in the majority.
Yeah.
Don't ever think you're in the minority. There's people who
there are so many. There are dozens of us.
Dozens. All right, but no. So Kyle,
6 hours of sunlight.
I was gonna say Christmas Evil. Scrooged.
I was gonna say To All a Good Night.
Scrooged.
What are you doing here?
Right. And then I was gonna say Scrooged. I think that like not only like Silent Night, Deadly Night is, though Black Christmas is sort of the pinnacle. I think that when I think of something that I want to pair something with, I never want to pair Black Christmas with anything in particular. I think I would want to do Silent Night, Deadly Night, and then Scrooged, because Scrooged also has a mean spirit about it, but it leans into that comedy. Like, we talk about this with horror comedies all the time. There's horror comedies and there's comedy horror. I just think that Silent Night, Deadly Night pairs well with Scrooged, and Scrooge is a great way to like end a Christmas night. Scrooge just has a place in my heart for like maybe not Christmas Eve, but like one of those nights kind of like really close to Christmas.
Yeah, watch it before Christmas so that you can be with your feelings before you have to be like
Like present, yeah. The 22nd is a good time to
I'm
watch.
Mr. The last movie I watch before I go to bed on Christmas Eve is like It's a Wonderful Life, followed by The Muppets Christmas Carol. Like it's like it's a real like sad, happy like barrel.
Right. And I don't think Scrooge doesn't fit into that, but I don't think it fits into it immediately beforehand.
I'm gonna go real wild. I'm not gonna pick a Christmas movie to double feature Silent Night, Deadly Night with. When I was watching it, and specifically the "Your Brother's Crazy" Ricky line made me realize that this movie dances that bizarre line of being a special movie the same way that I think that Sleepaway Camp is such a special movie.
Hell yeah, dude.
Where it's like this hits
way.
so many uncomfortable topics. It does so many things that feel so wrong.
Dude,
it does so many things.
It is the sibling to Sleepaway Camp. Dude, I've never thought about it.
This is the first time it dawned on me that I'm like, this is just like Sleepaway Camp Christmas Vacation.
And I'm not trying. My reaction is not, oh, of course. My reaction is, that's so perfect that it clicked.
It's untouchable. I'm crying. It's untouchable.
Yeah. Well, there we go. All right, Scott.
Hey, real quick, I wanted to say, if I wanted to get super crazy with my double features, I could double feature this with Halloween 4 and Halloween Ends. Now, this is very controversial because all three of these movies deal with the idea of evil being a virus that can be passed along. And that's what I mean, and also the woman who plays Mrs. Marshall also gets her fucking self killed at the beginning of Halloween 4. She's one of the orderlies who takes Michael Myers out of Smith's Grove on Halloween Eve like a fucking idiot.
Read the form. Read the file.
Exactly.
Read the file.
Like, I don't care how much you doped him up. He's coming back. But anyway, so if you wanted to do like Halloween 4, Halloween Kills, and then Silent Night, Deadly Night, you're going to get the same movie because it's the same idea that trauma that occurs can create a monster out of a person. And I think that because like the end of Halloween 4, Jamie is infected with the evil that Michael Myers had. And in most of Halloween Ends, whatever the fuck his name is, Corey?
Yeah,
Corey. Yeah, Corey. I think it's Corey.
I still have 40 minutes left. So.
He's infected with the evil of Michael Myers. And I know that people hated that about that movie, but that's what I liked about it. Because I thought there was an interesting, fresh idea of a way to make that movie.
Yeah. But we'll talk about that more when Kyle's finally gotten around to finishing it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in March.
But Scott, what have you watched that you want to talk about?
I want to talk about Love, Death, and Robots season 3.
Okay.
I loved season 1 and 2, but season 3 is, again, special. It made me feel like I have been watching schlock for years because the writing in a couple of these episodes is so perfect that it felt like when I was reading some of the best short stories of my life when I was younger, when the world was like newer and I wasn't so jaded by art and creativity, where I was like, oh, I've heard this story, I've read this concept before. I mean, it's not that the concepts are fresh, it's that the writing is so good. The actual screenplay is written so well that it's fantastic. And it leans more heavily into horror in this season than the sci-fi elements. And I know that both of the other seasons also had a lot of horror elements, but I just felt like this one was like 70% horror, 30% sci-fi, and I really loved that. And also, I believe it's the last episode of the season. It has no dialogue because the main character is deaf and the antagonist is a siren. But it's incredible. It's basically like watching ballet. It's phenomenal, so good. If it's on Netflix, if you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. It's so digestible too because everything is between 15 and 25 minutes long. You can watch it in a really short sitting. I tried to pace myself a little bit, but I did a very poor job. I think it was a day and a half that I finished it.
All right. I'm going to bounce off of that to talk about a TV show as well, actually, that also this show broke my brain on what you could do with a TV series. The final season of Atlanta finished airing. And for those of you who are or are not familiar with Atlanta, it's almost the tale of two TV shows. Donald Glover creates this show called Atlanta about a guy whose cousin becomes a pretty well-known rapper, and in a desperate attempt to earn respect, he latches on to this cousin and like becomes the manager. And the first season or two of the show, it's basically just their adventures as he becomes more and more popular and gets to tour the world. That was where Donald Glover wanted to stop the show. The show was making a lot of money. So FX was like, we want more Atlanta. And Donald Glover basically said, I will make more seasons of Atlanta, but it will now be an anthology show where I can tell any type of story that I'm interested in telling, and I can explore any type of filmmaking that I want to explore, and I can do whatever I want, and you will give me free reign to do this. And they were like, sure. So from this point, it's like horror stories, all of this strangeness. The final season has an episode that is so insane. Like the fact that it exists as an episode of television is so bizarre to me. It is a fake documentary about the first black CEO of Disney, who, side note, never existed, but who accidentally was in charge of Disney for 1 year, and he set out to make the blackest Disney cartoon of all time, a Goofy movie. And it's just like beat for beat. If you've ever seen a Goofy movie and you're watching this, the layers of this episode are so funny, and you can just watch it out of context because it has nothing to do with any other episode.
Bit. It sounds like a stand-up bit about how Goofy movie is the blackest. Like
it's the episode is literally called The Goof Who Sat by the Door. It is literally a 40-minute fake documentary about a person who doesn't exist that they produced.
But a Goofy movie exists in this world.
In this movie, yes. It is.
Oh my God.
It is insane. And then I don't want to spoil the show, but the final episode is absolutely one of the best ways to end a show this strange and this varied, where they found a way to tie the first two seasons and all of the strangeness of the second two seasons into a weird world where it all makes sense, that they could all exist simultaneously. It is a true work of art. I am going to miss having a TV show that is like this courageously out there, where it's just like, fuck it, we're going to make an episode, and if people get pissed off that for a whole episode none of their favorite characters are there, they'll just have to deal with it, because this is what I feel like making right now.
I feel like Atlanta's the only television show that I've been recommended throughout its entirety. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've never had, and with different reasons, sure, but it's been recommended to me throughout its entirety.
I legitimately think that this will be the way that people say that the world will look back at like Mad Men and Breaking Bad as like prime examples of like peak drama television. Yeah. I genuinely think that like 10 years from now, Atlanta and like The Good Place will be the shows that people look at as like, here's how you write a perfect comedy series that just like captures where the world is in that moment in a beautiful box.
That's cool.
And the last thing I'll say, I've said this online a couple times, there are episodes of Atlanta that are so uncomfortable and so scary that I am so ready for Donald Glover to go full Jordan Peele and just make a horror movie.
Don't tease me.
I've been recommended that show so many times, and I really
you would love, Kyle, you specifically, from like a filmmaking standpoint, there are so many like 10-minute tracking shots that show up in that. You're just gonna be like, this is amazing.
Love it.
All right, Kyle, send us home.
Dude, I watched speaking of the R word and the SA word that we've talked, I watched Death Wish 2.
Interesting choice.
It's my first Death Wish movie. It's really because Vinegar Syndrome put it out, and it came in my subscription box.
Always to blame.
It truly, like, to praise and to blame Vinegar Syndrome. Hey, look, like, I understand.
Well, maybe it was just rough because you didn't have the context of Death Wish 1.
That's really nice of you to say, Matt. I don't think it was. Hey, well, here's what I'll say. There's maybe the first half an hour. There's too much. Yep. Right? There's too much. And I understand that they put too much in to sort of like claim that the revenge of the too much would be acceptable. You know, as a millennial man in 2022, I realize now that you don't need that. I can understand context or hear about it through hearsay or through more subtle ways than very blatant sexual assault.
Yeah.
So I mean, truly, like I'm watching it decades removed, so I don't really it's not that I don't have a say, like, right? Like, but the movie exists. The movie exists, and I can't do anything about that. I do understand that there is this sort of thrill and this excitement about a person getting revenge on people that have chosen to exploitate and destroy people for no reason. I mean, people call. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to like. There's just also terms for those people. The same way that there's terms for the actions, there's terms for the people that pursue those actions that don't seem relevant to me. All in all, a revenge flick isn't a revenge flick. I prefer a revenge flick that has more subtlety. In 1980, whatever the fuck didn't exist, and that's that's of interest to me. Like, I mean, I want to know. I want to know how we continue to talk about and tell these stories, acceptance and subtlety, but also I don't want to exploitate anybody, but I also want to be serious about it was just an interesting time to watch Death Wish 2.
Yeah.
That's all.
So I want to give an explanation.
Merry
not
Christmas,
an excuse.
Happy New Year.
Yeah,
Death Wish 2, it exists.
Very quick explanation. It's worth noting with Death Wish 2, and I thought this was the case. I just Googled to make sure. Death Wish 1 ain't anything to write home about either, but I think the Death Wish 1 walks the line that you would like to see it walk a little bit better. Death Wish 2 was another one of those, almost a decade after the first movie, Canon Pictures bought the rights and were like, we're going to just produce as many sequels as we can for this. Right. And like, as much as we do love our Canon Pictures around here, they also weren't very great at not picking the absolute wrong detail that made the first movie popular.
No. But here's the other thing. I told my buddy Evan that I watched it. He told me, he was like, oh, my grandmother loved those Death Wish movies.
My grandma did too.
Yeah, my parents love like that and like the Dirty Harry movies. It was just a thing. I don't know what it was. It was the 70s gritty cop fighting against the system or whatever.
Right.
That'll be mega heads now.
Nana Barrett, Evan's grandma, Nana Barrett, watched them on TBS though. So we're missing. I mean, like this Vinegar Syndrome release has
TBS
both.
is very implied, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But this Vinegar Syndrome release has both the unrated version and the TV cut. So there's no rated version in the middle here, which is interesting.
Unrated bad or unrated okay?
No, unrated for sure. The most rapey thing, unfortunately. But also, I don't know. I didn't watch the TV cut. I have no concept, so I wanted to watch.
I don't think you need to. I think that's just.
I kind of want to now. It's the TV cut's longer. I shouldn't say I want to watch Death Wish 2's TV cut, but I kind of. This has happened a couple times now. I think maybe I should start with a TV cut, and if I enjoy it enough, loop back.
Yeah,
to
see
the
what the full
cut.
deal is.
Yeah, I think I actually want to start with the tame.
That should
what
be the
Nana
way to do it.
Yeah,
that's the way to do it.
Go with the Nana.
Go with the Nana Barrett cut.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was Silent Night, Deadly Night from 1984. It's essentially chosen by Scott, but chosen by all of us. It's a holiday celebration.
We accept. We agree.
We don't know what we're going to be talking about next week because at the time that we're recording this, the Black Friday poll has not dropped just yet. So,
oh shit!
Next week we're watching something. Y'all guys voted for it. Who knows what it is? Tune in.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.